have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
Yes, he is. Andy Hum is back. I've made a discovery in thanking Gabe Gonzalez and Chris Cooper for sitting in for you while you were away.
Which I was just about to do.
But here's what you may not have noticed. To guest host Gay USA, you must have the same first initial in your first and last name.
Wow.
Thank you, Gabe Gonzalez and Chris Cooper.
And
I'm Ann Northrup.
And I'm also happy to see that you survived into the new year.
So far.
After last week.
Oh, my God.
Well, you know, it's hard these days on all of us, right?
Yes.
But we've got some good news and bad news. I would say partly in the good news department, the Democratic Minority Leader Chuck Schumer spoke up for LGBT rights in his opening speech in the Senate. But activists are still headed for his home in Brooklyn to demand that he not cooperate with the Trump administration.
We'll give you the details Saturday in Brooklyn. A member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir has resigned rather than sing at the Trump inaugural, warning of the rise of fascism in this administration.
Oh, don't be hysterical, the reporter said to her. Please.
Okay.
On the other hand, the Clintons, the Bushes, and the Carters have caved in and will attend Trump's inauguration.
We'll debate that decision. The opposition to Trump's cabinet picks is amping up, with the NAACP Alabama occupying the office of Jefferson Sessions, Trump's racist, homophobic pick for Attorney General.
A right-wing federal judge has halted the enforcement of transgender protections and reproductive rights protections in the Affordable Care Act.
Gospel singer Kim Burrell has called us perverted.
Oh.
Ellen DeGeneres called her canceled.
There's a new home that's going to be opening up for the LGBT Center in Dayton, and new housing for LGBT homeless youth in Washington, D.C. We wanted to give you some good news.
Well, and some people will regard as good news the rumor, not confirmed yet, but the rumor that Will and Grace may be coming back to NBC for 10 episodes.
And I'm going to review at the end of the show a bunch of shows that I saw in London, including several that you can see in cinemas in the United States of America.
Okay, well, let's start with some really bouncy good news. The Rose Parade for New Year's in Pasadena, California.
The Grand Marshal, one of them, was Greg Louganis. There's his picture with the other Grand Marshals, who are...
He's on the left.
who are the fellow Olympic medalists Janet Evans and Allison Felix. Some of this has to...
And the Eagle.
Yes, some of this has to do with trying to attract the Olympics back to L.A.
Yeah, but I think Greg is the first out gay and certainly the first out HIV positive Grand Marshal that they've ever had at the Rose Parade.
He rode in a car with his husband in the parade, and that was nice. Wow. And then I was watching the Tournament of Roses parade, and I saw the AIDS Healthcare Foundation's float to honor and remember Orlando, and it was a memorial to the 49 victims of the Pulse massacre.
It also go ahead.
No, it won the Lathrop Leasham Trophy for most beautiful non-commercial float.
Just parenthetically, it is beautiful, and it's nice that they're remembering the victims of the Pulse Massacre at the Rose Parade.
And it was nice the way they spoke about it in the coverage, very sensitively, I think.
Parenthetically, there is also a new comic book that's been published to honor the Orlando victims. Some famous comic book artists and authors, and Matt Bomer and Morgan Spurlock, Patton Oswalt, J.K. Rowling, all involved in this production of this comic book called Love is Love, that is a tribute to the victims and a fundraiser for the Equality Florida fund that is helping the survivors, because that's a big deal, and we know, because we've been covering this, that even though they've raised millions of dollars, they have much more to go to help people's hospital costs and other costs related to this.
What a country. If only we had universal health care in America.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Or we could at least hold on to what we've got.
Yeah, but there was one other event at the Rose Parade that was not so, well, poignant to some of us. Skywriters.
Well, up there that you see on the screen, it says Trump is disgusting. In front of that, it said America is great. Trump is disgusting. And
didn't they also say something about fascists?
Oh, yes, they had a whole bunch of them, and it was just, you know, laying it out there. Are you available for the inauguration?
I would hope so.
Well,
if they'll do it at the Rose Parade, why?
They will get shut down.
They do restrict the airspace around things like that.
Yes, they do.
Well, congratulations to whoever did that. Do we know who did it?
I don't know.
Okay, well, we appreciate it.
Let's talk about the inauguration a little bit.
Okay.
We have a new hero. Her name is Jan Chamberlain. She's a member of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, and she resigned from the choir rather than sing for Trump at the inauguration. She's on television. She explicitly called him a fascist, and when CNN's correspondent, Carol Costello, said she was being hysterical, she said no, that she was quite calm. The problem, of course, is with reporters like Costello, who are not reporting really on what is the demise of American democracy here, and they better get a little bit more excited about it.
Look, it's one thing to question someone and say, why do you say that,
yes,
or what's your evidence, or what are you concerned about? But to call someone hysterical for saying it.
You know how they ask those things? Well, some would say you're being hysterical. Who's saying that? I hate that. Some say.
Oh, I think it's actually a convenient construction sometimes when I want to ask a question.
Okay.
But Facebook evidently thought Kevin Sessoms was being hysterical.
Kevin Sessoms is an award-winning reporter, wrote a lot of stories for Vanity Fair over the years, still at it. And he has been relentless on Facebook in talking about the Trump administration as nothing but a fascistic takeover of America. And he's quite emphatic about it and articulate about it.
Yes.
This isn't celebrity journalism, and he's taking, a lot of hits for it. And Facebook suspended him over this for a day.
For 24 hours, and then rescinded the suspension. And when they were called on it, they said it was a mistake. We got a complaint. We automatically suspend for language like that. But
language like what? Accurate language?
Excuse me, I thought my coughing was over.
Well, have a thing. All right. So, all right. Now,
but I'm also proud of the Rockettes who are objecting to performing,
yes,
and
absolutely.
And that's great.
And the fact that Garth Brooks isn't going, and all these people aren't going, and they're taking hits from the right wing, and Garth Brooks has a right wing audience.
Look, you have to have values in life.
Yes.
And you have to live out those values. I don't like it when the right wing objects to progressive stuff, but I certainly respect their right to have their set of values,
right,
and to act on them as long as they're not out shooting people or whatever, or anyone from our side doing that. But for people to be criticized for standing up for their values, I think is ridiculous.
Well, so what about...
the presidents.
Yes.
The former presidents.
Yes.
Almost presidents.
In the beginning, apparently the only one who was going to go to the inauguration was Jimmy Carter for reasons unknown. No president is required to go. It is very traditional for the sitting president to be there for the new president. And Obama, we expected Obama and Biden to go to that. But
I'd be very surprised if ex-presidents have not gone to inaugurations. Can you name any?
In the past?
Yeah.
That's just not something I'm conscious of because it's not required.
It's the transfer of power in the United States. They're the ex-presidents.
Well, here's the deal, and
I understand this, and I understand why Carter, who has been a long-time traditional peacemaker and whatever, would see a need to show up. But I don't
I don't think it's going to make any difference to Donald Trump other than his own self-aggrandizement. You know, people say, well, you know, I don't like the person who was elected, but I respect the office of the presidency. Yeah. Well, the problem is that Trump doesn't respect the office of the presidency from everything that he's doing. I mean, it's really quite insane at this point. Insane.
Well, he doesn't understand the office of the presidency. He doesn't understand public service. He has no experience of it, and no one has explained it to him adequately.
Well, he had a good meeting with Obama. He learned a lot.
Yes, he did, and Obama continues to be helpful to him every time he talks to him and reminds him of certain things. And then Trump backslides until someone talks to him again. Well, but I said this while you were away. I don't think he admires Putin. I think he is Putin. Right. He expects to run the country like a dictator, and I just can't imagine what's going to happen when a co-equal branch of government disputes him and stands up to him and disagrees with him and does something he doesn't like.
Well, as you and Chris pointed out on last week's show, he's got an opportunity to pack the courts at this point. You know, right now they're fairly liberal, but there are all these vacancies that he can fulfill immediately.
Because the Republicans have stalled all of Obama's nominations, so there are 103 empty seats on the federal bench around the country, plus the Supreme Court, plus whatever other Supreme Court vacancies come along.
I just don't think any of us should do anything to normalize this presidency. Look.
You want to be like the congressman who stood up at the State of the Union for Obama and yelled, "You lie"?
You don't have to do that, but I'll tell you, I might not go. If I were sitting in Congress, I might not sit there through a stupid State of the Union speech. I just wouldn't go. I mean, this is really serious, dangerous stuff, and we have to. It's not normal, and we have to do different things to stand up to it. I mean, even the American people get this already. I'm
so proud of them.
Well, I mean, he's got an approval rating of about 46%. A normal newly elected president gets about a 70% approval rating, no matter what party they're from, and people didn't vote for them because people want them to do well, they want them to succeed,
I
all
want
this
to take
kind of stuff.
a minute on this ethics thing because I want people to understand that Trump deserves no credit. Quite the contrary, for the canceling of the House scheme to get rid of the Independent Ethics Committee.
Which was founded about, what, 10 years ago? Or 8? No, after Obama got in, I think.
It was in the wake of the Jack Abramoff scandal. So.
I think it was about 08.
Okay. Well, whatever. They came up with this independent committee, and now Congress doesn't like it because the independent committee is noticing that there are some of them who are corrupt and is blowing the whistle on them, and they don't like it when that's publicized, and they want to go back to the cozy old system where nobody held anyone accountable. So the Republican Congress takes over, and the first thing that happens is the other night, one of their members says, hey, let's get rid of that that independent committee by folding it under the jurisdiction of the House Ethics Committee, which we control, and therefore we will control all this again. And the leaders say, that's not such a good idea, but they go, oh, no, we got to do this, and so they do. And then the New York Times gets wind of it because it's done behind closed doors and writes about it that night.
Right. And the American people rise up. The most Googled thing online was, who is my representative and where can I contact them? And people called up these offices.
But meanwhile,
that's a beautiful thing. Keep it up.
Yeah, well, we're getting to that. Meanwhile, everyone's wondering, what's Trump going to say about this? Will Trump, drain the swamp Trump, stand up and say, how dare they screw up this ethics system? Or what? What will he do? So the first thing that happens is Kellyanne Conway shows up on 4 morning shows the next morning. It's now like 12 hours old. And they say to her, what's Trump going to do? And she says, first
they've
of all,
overdone it.
First she says, I haven't talked to him about it. And yet I'm on 4 morning shows being asked about this. And 2, that independent commission really was screwy and really needed this reform, so they've done the right thing. Then And meanwhile, the American people, as you say, are flooding congressional offices with calls about this and saying, how dare you? Because the press, for once, is doing its job and saying, you know, this is unbelievable that they would just go right ahead and do this. And then Trump tweets and says, basically, yes, the office needed this reform. I have no argument with that. I just have an argument with the timing. So,
and the Congress is saying we're stopping it, the change, for now.
Exactly. So, meanwhile, then people are debating: should Trump be given credit? Should Trump be given credit? No, because what happened was that the Republicans, as the people were rising up and the media was embarrassing them, and Kellyanne Conway was making a fool of herself for once on TV, they're all scrambling, saying, how are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle this? How are we going to handle Trump? We can't have Trump condemn the Republicans for doing this, so we'll have him condemn the timing. He doesn't know anything about this. This is all constructed by them to avoid having him condemn the Republicans, but say something that gets him some little distance from them.
Is he the one who wants to bomb North Korea, or is it Kellyanne?
It's the Alliance Defending Freedom and the Family Research Council who are controlling the Trump administration.
It's true, folks. And, well, they elected him. Donald Trump did everything he could to, give them everything that they wanted so he could hold on to their votes, and he did. And they're going to get rid of abortion and gay rights, which is their main objective, and women's rights of all kinds.
They have a long list.
They do. All right, but let's give them a little bit of encouraging news. Tuesday, the new Congress was sworn in. There were a dozen new Democratic women in the Congress.
They didn't take your suggestion and put Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court.
They did not, including 4 new female senators, and 7 are women of color, and all are known as fighters. So there's some new energy in this dark time, and that's good.
And I think they'll hold Schumer's feet to the fire.
Yeah, and then there is Chuck Schumer, and I watched his opening speech on the floor of the Senate as the new minority leader there, and I didn't think it was bad. And I'm a big critic of his on many fronts. He mentioned sexual orientation several times and the LGBT community, and he sounded ready to fight. Now,
yes.
So in this case, unlike with Trump, I'll say we'll see, Chuck. But we are going to go out to your house in Park Slope this Saturday from 1 to 4 p.m. at 9 Prospect Park West. Take the 2 or 3 train to Grand Army Plaza. You know the route. We were out there in '96 when he voted for the Defense of Marriage Act.
Yes, he did.
Twice. And he came out both times and yelled at us, and we yelled right back at him.
I yelled at him at a Lambda dinner at Cipriani.
But I am clarifying, I thought it was a good speech. Now we need action.
He's talking a good game. We'll see what happens when push comes to shove, because he's making a lot of claims about things the Democrats can do, and I'm not convinced he can follow through on those.
He told Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, the majority leader, that they can expect a long fight on Jeff Sessions as Attorney General, Rex Tillerson as Secretary of State, Mick Mulvaney as the Office of Management and Budget Director, and Betsy DeVos at Education. And other Senate Democratic aides told reporters they're going to do a big fight on Tom Price for HHS, who's a horror show, Andrew Pertzer at Labor, this guy Steve, how do you say his name? Mnuchin, who's going to be our Treasury Secretary, who ran a foreclosure mill at the One West Bank, and the Oklahoma Attorney General Scott Pruitt, who is, doesn't believe in climate change, is going to run the EPA.
Every last one of them should be stopped, but I have no confidence that any of them will be. The Republicans have the votes, and unless some of their people defect.
We need to keep Democrats together, and you need a handful of Republicans. You need a handful of Republicans who will go along with it. But just as with this latest episode with the ethics office, if stuff comes out at these hearings where people say, what the hell are you doing? And the phone calls start coming in, that can back them up.
Yes. The people who are really in power to stop any of these people are the American people.
I mean, Zoe Baird was stopped from being the Attorney General of the United States because she didn't pay taxes on a nanny. Please. and that was under the Clinton administration, 1993. So the opposition to Jeff Sessions as Attorney General.
Yeah, I want to repeat that. I don't want to let this slip by, because the Republicans do have enough votes if they stick together to confirm all of these people in 30 seconds. But if the American people stand up and flood their offices with phone calls the way they did on this Congressional Ethics Committee, they can stop these nominees.
Now, the problem with this is that we did stop, for instance, Robert Bork getting on the Supreme Court. And you know who we got in his place by a 98-0 vote? Scalia.
I don't care. I'm glad we don't have Robert Bork.
Please. Well, didn't he die? Anyway.
Bork?
Anyway, sorry if you're not dead, and if you're watching, I hope you're enjoying the fascist takeover. Now, the opposition to Jeff Sessions is really growing. There were 1,100 law professors from around the country who, big ones, who signed a thing against him. He cannot fairly enforce our nation's laws, they said. And then the NAACP...
Well, he has a long record of racism and homophobia, just as a start.
Yes. And the NAACP in Alabama and the national president of the NAACP, Cornell Brooks, had a sit-in at his office in Mobile and got arrested over this. And, they said they weren't going to leave until they got to meet with him. They didn't get to meet with him.
They were there for about 10 hours. They didn't get to meet with him, but he sent them pizza and Pepsis.
Well, when the Harvey Milk School was being protested by the religious right, where we used to work years ago, Damian Martin brought them coffee and donuts on the picket line. So what the hell?
Well, at least he brought it to them.
Yes.
Sessions didn't bring it. By the way, your friend Cardinal Dolan will be speaking at the inauguration. He'll be giving the invocation. Franklin Graham will also be speaking, I believe, at the inauguration.
Bruce Springsteen said this week, look, I felt disgust before at politics, but never the kind of fear that you feel now. This is someone who is just not competent to do the job, and that's the problem.
And another little offshoot, that really disgusting acolyte of Trump, Milo Yiannopoulos, the young out gay provocateur. I don't even want to call him a writer, but he's the one who goes around saying misogynistic, homophobic, racist stuff, and getting kicked off college campuses and being really, really horrible and disgusting.
And what does that get you in America today? A $250,000 advance from the prestigious Simon & Schuster imprint.
For a new book, which is already a huge hit in pre-orders on Amazon. Yes, it's true. He's the one who went after Leslie Jones on Twitter and got himself kicked off Twitter for his horrible, horrible assault.
So, there's all kinds of demonstrations that are happening. There's a bunch of them in New York this week. There is the big women's march in D.C. on January 21st.
And all over the country, in cities all over the country. San Francisco, L.A., Cincinnati, Denver, New York.
In New York, we're going to go to Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza, which is at 46th and 1st, and over there at 11 o'clock on the 21st for that.
And march over to Trump Tower. We will be ending up at Trump Tower. There is a permit for this. We can do it legally.
Okay. All right.
President Obama will be giving his farewell address next week. He's already giving speeches about his list of accomplishments and includes marriage equality on all those lists. Okay. We're still hoping, no more than thinking Merrick Garland would be put on the Supreme Court do I think that Chelsea Manning is going to get a commutation of her sentence. But she has now served 6 years of the 35 she has been sentenced to, which is twice as long already in that 6 years as most other whistleblowers who usually get sentences of 1 to 3.5 years. She gave a very interesting interview to Vice. You can find it at broadly.vice.com. It's worth reading, and in the end she says, I'm a person, not a symbol, and here I am locked up. And
well, didn't Trump want him executed, or was that Snowden?
They want all these people who are whistleblowers and being transparent about government misdeeds executed.
Well, I hope if there are any...
It wasn't Trump, it was someone else who said that Chelsea Manning should be executed. Oh, K.T. McFarland, who is going to be the Assistant National Security, the NSA deputy.
Well, all right. Should we tell them about this terrible judicial decision?
Sure.
All right. This judge, Reed O'Connor, out of Texas, I believe, right?
Federal
yes.
judge in
Federal
Texas.
judge. On the eve of the new year, issued an injunction blocking enforcement of provisions of the Affordable Care Act relating to transgender folks and reproductive health stuff, where you weren't supposed to be able to discriminate against anybody because of the decisions they make in that area. And this is now on hold. Here's what he said. Plaintiffs claim the rule's interpretation of sex discrimination pressures doctors to deliver health care in a manner that violates their religious freedom and thwarts their independent medical judgment and will be a burden to them and all this kind of stuff. So Art Leonard, our lawyer friend, a legal eagle friend at the Gay City News, said that it signals a major and probably long-term setback to efforts by transgender people to obtain non-discriminatory health care, including coverage for medically necessary transition procedures. This is a disaster, and there's no time really to get it appealed and overturned, is there?
Before
they're going to try.
The Trump administration takes over the Justice Department and changes the reading. Well, you know, I have a caveat with this. First of all, I'll point out this is the same judge who stopped the student transgender guidelines that the Department of Education had put out, even though no one had sued to enforce them. He just said, don't even bother. And they're judge shopping for this guy.
Yes.
He's the only federal judge in this district.
Yeah.
They have gone to find him, and he issues
Clever of them.
Well, and clever of him, because he writes these rulings and just states, this is a national ruling.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's even legal, but he states that this is a national
And this is in a
ruling.
relatively conservative circuit.
Oh, God, yes.
So that's a problem, too.
yeah.
So it takes more time to overturn it.
But here's the caveat. What the current reading is about with the Affordable Care Act is that the Obama administration, provoked by some readings by the EEOC, is now asserting an interpretation of sex discrimination as including gender identity and expression and reproductive freedom. And this judge is saying, no, you can't go that far. And normally, if we were in the middle of the Obama administration, they would appeal that to the Supreme Court, and we'd have a chance of winning that. When the Trump administration takes over, there will be a different attitude, and we'll have a hard time getting that question to the Supreme Court. But I believe it was in reading Art Leonard's column that I found out that in writing the ACA, or this part of it or whatever, they left out the traditional religious exemption. And that has screwed us in this case, because it allows the judge to say there should be a religious exemption here, and you have left that out, and therefore I'm going to rule that these people have been deprived of their routine religious exemption.
Okay.
So,
by the way, Judge O'Connor has a history of anti-LGBT decisions.
oh, yes.
Now, you mentioned Chelsea Manning, last-minute reprieve. The Human Rights Campaign would like Secretary John Kerry to apologize for the lavender scare, the witch hunt, where they got rid of all the gay people back in the 50s and 60s from the State Department.
I mean,
you're not into these things.
I'm
Okay.
not into apologies so much.
All right.
Reparations?
Yeah, be nice.
That'd be nice.
Be nice.
In Arizona, a trans woman originally from India is being held in detention by the immigration and whatever it is.
Customs enforcement.
Thank you. And is facing deportation, even though she's married to a U.S. citizen.
But she has an Indian passport where she didn't get the gender marker changed, hasn't had her gender marker changed, and her marriage is recognition of her marriage is being held up because she has to provide divorce papers from 1990, and California's Records Bureau has lost them.
It's a whole
and for this
screw-up.
reason, she's in one of the most horrible abusive facilities in the country, and this is under the current administration.
She is legally married to a U.S. citizen and yet is facing deportation because of paperwork
Just an
screw-ups.
outrage.
Yeah.
Nina Chaubal.
And in other news of transgender people, in New York City, a trans man was attacked and stabbed on the subway after offering his seat to someone, who then took offense at him.
This was just unbelievable. On Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and he was quite injured. And in the Bronx, I think, or maybe it was Upper
Hamilton
Manhattan.
Heights.
Thank you, Upper Manhattan. A 23-year-old man killed his girlfriend, who was his former teacher, and their 4-year-old son, evidently in part because he accused that girlfriend of dressing the son as a girl.
And dressed the son in girls' clothing.
Yeah.
And so it's a horror story.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, the bullying victim that we talked about in the New York City schools, Cardin Ulysses, who was gay bash beaten and blinded in 2012 by classmates, there's his picture, got a $700,000 settlement from the city of New York. Now, you know, I wish they would invest $700,000 more in anti-bullying programs and making schools places of respect. We have laws about it that have been passed, the Dignity for All Students Act and all these other kinds of things, but that it's not really being implemented.
You know, some days I wonder why we bother passing any laws, because there is so little enforcement of anything. It becomes
Well, the thing
a
is, when
joke.
there's a law like that, it's a great opportunity for people of goodwill who run schools, and there are some, to use them to change the atmosphere in the schools. But a lot of people just do the least possible, and that's the problem.
There are days when I just want to give up on government entirely and say, look, people live as they live.
Yeah, but we're not safe then.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I'm happy to tell you that Cardin regained his sight with a corneal transplant.
Good. And then we have in New York State the case of Sally Kelly Keenan, and the first intersex birth certificate in the country, possibly, they believe. She was born intersex with male genes, female genitalia, and mixed reproductive organs, and she got the intersex designation. So that is a first.
Okay. Now, not a first is the dispute over the singer and Houston pastor, Kim Burrell.
Gospel singer.
Yeah, gospel singer and evangelical pastor of a church in Houston. Now, Kim Burrell is in the news at the moment because she does a duet with Pharrell Williams, you know, Happy, Pharrell Williams, on the soundtrack of the new movie Hidden Figures about the African-American women who worked at NASA in the 60s.
Right.
I'm dying to see that
Me too.
movie. But they have a song on the soundtrack, so that's very prominent, and everybody's happy about the movie, and they're booked on Ellen to sing the song along with one of the actresses from the movie.
They were booked on Ellen. But
And then
That's-
a video came out of Kim Burrell preaching at her evangelical church in Houston.
it's a little grainy, but we're going to show it to you, and then we'll explain
We'll show you part of it,
what
a
was said.
little snippet.
So he refused his invitation to the church. Anybody in this room who's dealing with the homosexual spirit, beg God to free you. You play with it, 2017, you'll die from it. I'll be there for you. You play with it in God's house in 2017, you'll die from it. Y'all came to hear about cars? I came to tell you about sin. Come on! Come on! My God! That sin nature, I'll get down one with the other one, but that perverted homosexual spirit is a spirit of delusion and confusion, and it has deceived many men and women. And it's caused a stain on the body of Christ. And those homosexual spirits have been angry, and they come up against it. You gotta love everybody. Spit out the serpent. Come on. You cannot give instruction to God holiness with that much perversion. You as a man will open your mouth and take a man's penis in your face. You are perverted, and you cannot tell me what thus saith the Lord. You're perverted. Come on. You are a woman that will shake your face in another woman's breast. You are perverted.
It's real.
And it has come into our church and has embarrassed with all these different spirits, went all the way to Jimmy Kimmel. You see what the enemy is looking for? Yeah. Like we got Catherine Coleman. We got people
Still hear it. Cut it off.
Cut.
Cut the tape.
They can't stop it.
Stop it.
You can't.
There
You
go.
can't stop the Spirit of the Lord.
Okay.
Let me, let's
No, let's go.
No, we'll keep going.
We're going to keep going. You didn't stop it, I hope.
So it's a little hard to hear, but what you could clearly hear was her talking about sex acts. Which
You as a man, you open your mouth and take a man's penis in your face, you are perverted. You are a woman and you will shake your face in another woman's breast, you are perverted. So that's pretty explicit. But then she tries to say, oh no, I was talking about liars. Well, you know.
Well, she did a follow-up video on YouTube that you can see, Kim Burrell, where she talks to the camera about how she is being persecuted because she was misunderstood in what she said. You never heard me say LGBT. No,
No.
I didn't.
No, that would
because
be-
you talked about perverted homosexuals.
Yeah.
And then she says, I was just talking about people in my church who are not honest about who they are. No, you weren't. You were condemning homosexuality.
Correct.
So you are not telling the truth, Kim Burrell, and you are trying to get around what you actually said.
All right.
So she was scheduled to appear on the Ellen Show, and
No, you know, Ellen said she's not, all she sort of said was she's not going to be appearing on the show. She didn't.
And she has been condemned in a series of Twitter messages by everyone from Pharrell, her singing partner, to Shaka Khan, to, I don't know, a whole list of
And
people.
please, you know, we're not just picking on her. We go after all who worship false gods.
Cardinal Dolan.
Yes.
Franklin Graham.
Et cetera.
Yeah.
So, and the entire religious right.
But this was particularly egregious and unnecessary and ridiculous.
Let me give you a couple of New York updates. Governor Cuomo in New York has commuted the sentence of Judith Clark. Hasn't released her from prison. Now she was a driver in the Brinks robbery. This is the Weather Underground years ago.
Drove the getaway car.
She's a lesbian, and she was, you know, she was very hardcore in those days about her politics and against the war and against American imperialism and all these kinds of things, and she was sentenced to 75 years to life. And she served 35 years, and she is the most model prisoner you've ever heard of. She does HIV/AIDS programs, she trains service dogs, she does prenatal. I mean, she's just. I mean, they're lucky to have her in prison there. The governor there's been a huge campaign on by people like
For years.
We know Alan Roscoff, Ronnie Eldridge. All these people have been pressing for her commutation, and the governor met with her.
Yep.
And decided to commute her sentence, so that she's eligible for parole.
So she still has to face a parole board, and the family survivors of the officers who were killed are certainly going to show up and object to her release.
Sure.
Patrolmen's organizations will show up and argue against her release. They've already spoken out against it. But you know, Kathy Boudin, who is also part of this, is already out of jail. Others who were part of this are already out of jail. For some reason, she's still in there.
Right.
And she would certainly continue to make a large contribution to society in freedom.
On the other hand, Governor Cuomo, you did a bad thing. He vetoed a bipartisan bill that would have required the state to fund legal services for the poor that the NYCLU had been pushing. He said it was too expensive, for God's sakes, and you know,
Yeah,
this was
justice
this
is
was
way
passed,
too expensive.
This was passed almost unanimously in the state legislature. Speaking of which, our state legislature in New York. See, you know, we're going to complain about what's going on in Washington, but look at New York. We elected a Democratic state Senate for the first time again in a while in New York State, and Democrats, 7 or 8 of them have decided, you know, let's caucus with the Republicans. We can get more done that way, and we can get some things done for ourselves. And the governor goes along with this, and we, the Democratic Party, go along with this. It's an outrage. They should all be thrown out of the party. This is New York. I give up. Talking about giving up.
He's on my side now.
Yeah.
All right, let's get moving, or we'll never get to your London theater reviews.
They'll be online, but go ahead.
In Tennessee, 300 local businesses have signed on to a pledge to oppose anti-LGBT bills in the state legislature, including one current proposal that allows counselors to refuse service to LGBT patients. And they're also afraid that there's going to be an attempt to pass something like North Carolina's HB 2. But all these businesses have, and this is large corporations, small local businesses, the whole range of people.
And we were able to beat back most of these bills, like there's one in Missouri to deny all couples the right to marry. We were able to beat bills like this back last time.
That's insane.
I worry about that this time because of the atmosphere the country is in.
Well, but I'm going to argue with you on that because I take as my model the people standing up. People are seeing what's happening and they realize that they do have to speak up. So while there is certainly a hardcore of right-wingers who are not in agreement with us, the people who are being shaken out of their complacency.
Well, somebody that tried to stand up for himself was a guy named Will X. Walters in San Diego. He's the guy who sued San Diego cops for arresting him for wearing a butt-exposing gladiator costume in the Pride Parade.
Are we still talking about him?
Well, he committed suicide.
Oh, I'm very sorry to have said what I just said.
No. I mean, you know, he hadn't been heard from. He lost his last appeal,
I see.
and then he killed himself. So I mean,
sorry.
He went $1 million in debt. The legal bills that says here.
He did wage a long campaign for freedom of expression.
Yes. All right. Now.
In Ohio, congratulations. The LGBT Center in Dayton has acquired a new space for their community center. They've been in business for 40 years, longer than the center here. And they're still in the process of fundraising to make it a reality, but they are moving ahead.
My father went to the University of Dayton, but I don't think they had a gay center then. In Washington, D.C., they're opening up this week an 8-bedroom transitional house for homeless LGBT youth. You can read about it at smyl, smyal.org. All right.
International news. In China, there's a court decision about the trans man who claimed to have been fired illegally by the health clinic where he started work, and a month later he was fired. And the court says, yes, he was fired illegally, but that they can't prove that it was anti-trans discrimination that was the cause of his firing.
But they didn't give him his job back. They gave him a small bit of compensation.
Yeah.
Yeah, not much.
And, you know, he won a moral victory,
But it's
certainly.
the first in the country to address the anti-transgender discrimination issue there.
And BuzzFeed and the Williams Institute and something called Ipsos have done a worldwide survey on attitudes towards trans people on subjects like, they asked people, do you think there should be non-discrimination laws? Do you think people should have access to restrooms, surgery, marriage, kids? The best countries were predictable: Spain, Sweden, Argentina, Canada. The U.S. fell somewhere in the middle in attitudes of the population about trans issues, along with Australia, Mexico, France, Italy. And the worst, of course, were places like Poland, South Korea, Hungary, and Russia way at the bottom. Way at the bottom. Now, there were also some conflicting opinions. You know, people would say, oh, I support trans rights, but I don't support this, or whatever.
Italy has opened its first center for LGBT refugees in Bologna, called Rise the Difference, in a joint effort with LGBTQ organizations and groups fighting racial discrimination.
Putin's Christmas message spent a lot of time bemoaning the loss of Christian traditional family values, for instance, on homosexuality and trans people.
And progress continues to be made in Taiwan over same-sex marriage, the president speaking out there.
In Nepal, they have recognized the United States marriage of an American woman and a Nepalese woman, and then they moved back to Nepal, and they have granted a visa to the U.S. woman as the wife of the Nepal woman.
Right.
And in Iraq, something called the Rasan organization in the Kurdistan region is starting a human rights campaign, which includes painting murals on high school walls of diverse families, and including same-sex couples.
Great.
They're getting both pro and con opinions on that.
AIDS news.
In Northern California, they've released the results of a study about the use of Truvada as pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Disturbing results.
Well, good results in no new HIV infections.
Great.
That's great, except for 2 guys who went off the use, evidently. But sexually transmitted infections.
41.9% of these people got an STI after 12 months on PrEP. That means they're not using condoms, and there's also a kidney effect for many of them. And so, look. Continue to use condoms, not just certainly to prevent these sexually transmitted infections, but also so that some other bug doesn't get going in the system. And consider the side effects. You have to consider all these things.
Well, it's all a vicious cycle.
No, but condoms could still be used. And,
yes, they could, but I mean,
it's not going to help with the kidney stuff.
We had sexual freedom in the 70s, rampant sexually transmitted infections, HIV got in the mix. Then everybody used condoms.
Yes.
HIV went down. Sexually transmitted infections went down. Now we have something to prevent HIV infection, and we're back to sexually transmitted infections.
And we talk about marijuana because we believe in decriminalization. And Massachusetts has a program for recreational sales, but they're now delaying it. The legislature is delaying it.
My brothers are not happy.
Okay.
All right, entertainment news.
No.
Well, let's mention a couple of people who died in the last couple of weeks who we haven't mentioned, a couple of Broadway stars. Dick Latessa, who made a big hit in Hairspray on Broadway.
As the husband of Harvey Fierstein.
Yes.
In Hairspray.
Yeah, and Dick was an out gay man, 87 years old, and
very funny guy.
Yes, and sorry to lose him. And George Irving was 94.
Wow.
And appeared with Debbie Reynolds in a revival of the musical Irene, 1975.
And last week was too early for you to talk about the death of Debbie Reynolds.
She had not died when we were taping the show.
Just Carrie Fisher.
Yeah.
She died the next day, her mother.
HBO has moved up the broadcast of the Carrie Fisher, Debbie Reynolds documentary to this coming Saturday, Bright Lights, starring Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds. It's a 90-minute documentary. But what we have to say about Debbie, because it hasn't been said by the mainstream media, is the long-time lesbian rumors about her. She was rumored to have a long-term affair with Agnes Moorehead. And others.
Who was part of the Mercury Theater of Orson Welles.
Well, there was an age difference between Agnes and Debbie. But if you Google them, you'll find reference to this. Now, I wasn't in the room, but there it is fairly well known. Todd Fisher, the son, confirmed this at one point. But here was the real thing.
Well, Carrie never confirmed it in her very explicit show about her family. She never talked about it.
Well, neither did Debbie. But
Debbie was pretty saucy. I watched the Debbie Reynolds, Carrie Fisher Oprah interview from a few years ago, and it was terrific.
Eddie Fisher wrote an autobiography years ago. He was going to write a chapter about Debbie being a lesbian. Debbie threatened to sue. The chapter was removed from the book. I read the book. How many can say
galleys?
that? No. Because even with the chapter removed, here's what Eddie wrote about Debbie. For their honeymoon, Debbie brought along her best friend, a gym teacher.
We should also say,
which, in fact, was Debbie's dream job that she had planned to pursue before she ended up in Hollywood.
Look, she late in life, she ended up playing the mother of gays. She was in In and Out, playing Kevin Kline's mother as he came out. That was a great movie, Paul Rudnick movie. And then she was in the Liberace thing, Behind the Candelabra,
unrecognizable.
Playing Liberace's Polish mother.
Yeah. And she played Deborah Messing's mother in Will and Grace.
And she was also a great advocate on AIDS. She did fundraisers starting in 1983, folks. When
Before Liz Taylor,
Yes.
her
when we did not have
rival
very
for
many
Eddie Fisher.
friends.
The Castro Theater in San Francisco held a sort of memorial event by showing postcards from the Edge on the big screen. Very well attended.
Based on
packed
Carrie's
house.
book about the two of them, yes.
Yeah.
Of course, Debbie wanted to play herself in that movie, but they had Shirley MacLaine instead.
Yes, exactly.
There is a rumor that Will and Grace is going to come back for 10 episodes on NBC. Leslie Jordan, who's in the show, is saying this. So is apparently someone else in the
Deborah
cast.
Messing
But
mentioned it
NBC
too.
will not confirm.
It's very much at the rumor stage. We can't confirm that yet. PBS is taping falsettos for airing.
Oh.
Yeah. So eventually you will be able to see the revival of falsettos, which we highly recommend on PBS. And, a couple of gay contestants on the new Celebrity Apprentice, Carson Kressley and Boy George. Arnold Schwarzenegger is hideous and horrible, and I realized.
Thank you for watching it and not making me.
Well, there's a method to this madness. This is so Trump can say I was better, and
so he
you're going
cast
to miss
him.
me on Celebrity Apprentice.
All right.
So, Andy, you've been in London
Well,
and you've been to the theater.
And I want to emphasize shows that you can see in the United States, if you're because a lot of
Okay.
them come via cinema. And one of them I want to alert you to. It'll be later this year, and it's sort of news that Angels in America is going to be done at the National Theater in May with Nathan Lane, Andrew Garfield, and Russell Tovey. And then after that, it'll be on ntlive.com, which is National Theater Live.
Have you been to any of those?
Many.
And
Many.
does it work?
Oh,
in
yeah,
the-
they do a great job with them. Now, it's always kind of better if you've already seen the play and then you get to relive it, but they do a great job. They do a great job. Now, one that's not going to be there, and it was the best show that I saw in London, was Love. By Alexander Zeldin. And this doesn't sound like much. It's 2 hours in a hostel with homeless families in one bathroom, using one bathroom. It was a deeply affecting experience. You were just with them as their lives were unfolding. These are unlucky people whose benefits have been denied and they have no place to live. I thought that was terrific. It was the best thing I saw. And on a lighter note, Much Ado About Nothing. From the Royal Shakespeare Company. Now there's Lisa Dillon and Edward Bennett playing Benedict and Beatrice. It's set in the Downton Abbey era. It's a great rendition of the comedy. It blends slapstick, romance, and dark tragedy. I hope it comes here. They've been doing it for 2 years. And then Amadeus has been revived at the National Theater and the big theater, the Olivier. It was done there in 1979. That's when it premiered. Now this is Adam Gillen as Mozart and Lucian M. Samati as Salieri. So you've got a black Salieri. Now, I mean, you could say it's non-traditional casting, but they also put him in a black wig, and everybody else is in a white wig. So there's something going on there with race that they're trying to say, the outsider. It's sort of like Salieri, your arm's too short to box with God, because that's what it's all about. He's mad at God for giving Mozart the gifts, and he doesn't have them, and it's all about revenge and against the vulgar man-child Mozart. Absolutely, 3 hours, but it does, and that is coming to NT Live in February. So watch for that.
We'll try to remind you of that when it's coming up.
Matthew Bourne, the out gay director, now Sir Matthew Bourne, has a new dance show, The Red Shoes. You remember the movie, 1948.
Moira Shearer.
There you are. But
I am old.
He uses, you didn't.
I didn't see the original,
You didn't.
not when it was originally released.
But he uses Bernard Herrmann music, who does all those movie scores, mainly for Alfred Hitchcock, but others. It's lushly romantic, and it's another tale of envy gone wrong, and it's wonderful. By the way, all my reviews are going to be at gaycitynews.com. They're already up there online. You can read the full reviews. Peter Pan was revived at the National... Well, I shouldn't say it's revived. This is at the National Theater. There's Anna Francolini playing Captain Hook and Mrs. Darling, so that's a twist. But this is the company that did Jane Eyre last time. You remember how I raved about that, maybe?
Yeah.
Fantastic company.
Vividly.
But yes, but, well, all right. But this is the same adults playing kids often, and it's a fantasy show. It doesn't quite work as well, I would just say.
You say it's not a revival?
Well, it's not a revival of a traditional Peter Pan script with like Kathy Rigby running around. They take the story.
Please, Mary Martin.
And Mary Martin. They take the story and they rework it.
Okay.
You know, that's what I'm saying.
All
All right. The next one is a David Hare play. I'd go to see anything David Hare writes. It's called The Red Barn by David Hare at the National's Littleton. The director is Ivo Van Hove, out gay director, who did A View from the Bridge, which we saw and liked here.
Yes, very much.
It's based on a Maigret novel. It's a mystery story. And Mark Strong is there on the was there on the left. He's very strong in it, but it's a mystery story, and I just said there's not that much there.
Okay.
On the other hand, Mary Stuart. Now this is Frederick Schiller's 1800 play. This is at the Almeida. There's Leah Williams on the left and Juliet Stevenson on the right. And in the night I saw it, Leah played Mary, and I'm sorry, Leah played Elizabeth, and Juliet played Mary. They spin a coin at the top of the show, and the actors do not know what role they're going to play that night until the coin falls, and they call it. And that creates a kind of a tension, because these are...
Do you get to see the spinning of the coin?
Yeah, they do it right there. Yes, it's right there done on stage. It's very tense, and it's tense for them because they got to think, okay, what character have I got to get into? And it works tremendously. And this is this new hot director, Robert Icke, who did this, and it's also almost 3 hours long. Great supporting cast, muscular concept. I recommend it.
Okay.
On the other hand, Robert Icke, same director, does Hedda Gabler at the National's Littleton with Ruth Wilson. You know her? There she is. She's from The Affair on HBO.
Yeah.
And the actor there, Kyle Soller.
Well, she's
playing her
English,
husband.
but she does The Affair with an American accent.
Yes, and so does Dominic West, who's also
absolutely.
English. So it's a modern dress Hedda. You know, I get that, and for me it didn't work as well. Anyway, we're running out of time. I also saw, I'll just go quickly, I saw This House at the Garrick, which is about the labor parliaments of the 70s. Absolutely a terrific show. I saw Simon Callow doing A Christmas Carol and hoped that Trump would be visited by the three spirits.
I hate that show.
And I saw another show at the Finborough Pub Theater called After October about a family living in poverty in Hampstead. Oh yes, this is from the 30s, not from today. So all my reviews are online at gaycitynews.com. I'm glad to be back. Thank you.
Welcome back.
Good to be back with you. Good to see you in better health.
Yes,
And,
pretty much.
We'll see you next week.
Okay, and we will continue to follow the theater of the Trump administration.
Go online, sign up for our emails at gayusatv.org. There it is on the screen, gayusatv.org. Sign up for our emails, get notices, and stay current and watch us online if you need to.
And we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.